Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience podcast. Today I have with me Sabine Kvenberg. She's an author, singer, songwriter, certified purpose, a life coach, a distinguished Toastmaster, and founder of Communication Coaching Center. Thank you for joining me today.
I am so happy to be here and have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
How long is your podcast? I'm just kidding. No, I now live in sunny Florida, but originally I am from Hamburg, Germany. So that's where my journey really began. I was a stage and TV actress for 10 years, and then I traveled the world as director and producer, putting on shows. And then my husband and I, we decided to move to the States, where he is from, to open a performing arts school. And we had that school for 27 years. But then again, things changed, and I felt that I was done with this part, and I was now, looking forward to serve on a different level in a different area. Now I work with entrepreneurs, helping them to become more confident in front of the camera and using their story to really connect with the audience and hopefully also turn prospects into paying clients. And yeah, that's basically kind of what I am doing right now.
So how was that impacted during the last few years? Have you had to pivot in a way, kind of redefine who you are and the way you market and help people as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all started out that with the first pivot. If you remember 2008, 2009, the bubble burst, right? That was right in the middle where we expanded our business. But after 15 years, we thought, you know what? I think it's time for us to move on and enjoy life. We wanted to sell our business, and we had somebody to buy it. But back then we were not smart enough, I would say, to really put it into writing. It was just on a handshake. It was another, dancer from that métier, performing arts. So long story short, literally 5 minutes before noon, that was end of June. It was June 30th. July 1st, she should take over. She told us, no, I made a different decision. And that was so out of the blue. And we were like stuck with the company that we still had and the clients we still had and a mortgage we still had to pay in the building that we were in. And so all of a sudden our dreams were crushed and we could not leave. We just couldn't leave. But worst, we already made the announcement and a lot of students left. So we found ourselves to rebuilding again. So that was really the first pivot and really hard time to give you kind of a little bit of a background. And then we build it back up again. And then, of course, COVID hit. And boom, we taught classes in person, acting, singing, dance. Not we, but we had a lot of teachers. So all of a sudden, nobody came. That was another pivot. But luckily, Roman, during that time, I was already in transition. I started having clients. I started my online business. I figured that all out. That was really the past 10 years. I did that slow transition. And that helped me to care of keeping that business going through that hard time, put everything online because now I kind of knew how to do it. And that really helped me in that, on that journey during that time.
Yeah, well, 2008 was interesting for a lot of people now. how the economy's going and world events with a lot of uncertainty, but everything I think in life is a lesson or a blessing. In 2008, I had to kind of pivot into what I've been doing for 15 years, from me thinking I was going to be kind of in federal law enforcement and interning with the Secret Service, to then the economy tanking and nobody hiring, budgets freezing, and an opportunity arose, and I kind of ran with it. And a lot of people that were obviously in real estate and other ventures around that time lost everything. Some of which, that led to different things, like obviously suicide and crazy things like that. But you really don't have a choice if something like that happens, which to everyone, when you have good times, I feel like, you have to prepare for the bad times and the good times. You have to kind of get yourself ready, because economic factors, you're not in control. You are to a certain extent of your own life. You can make that choice, but outside factors are outside factors. So, economy, war, famine, illness, disease, things of that nature will impact you in one way or another, or it's something happening to you or loved ones. And you have to figure out how to react to that, because, you don't really have an option.
I would say more respond than react, because there are many different people. All of us were caught up in that bubble burst, in that situation. Some, as you mentioned, did suicide because they couldn't deal with that. And here's the interesting fact. I'm also a mindset coach. A mindset is the basis for everything, and I incorporate that in my business very much so, also from personal experience. During that time, my husband and I, we also were involved in real estate. We bought 2 real estate properties, and the last one was like a business property where we expanded our business. We're all kind of connected. And I mean, all of a sudden we invested $1 million or something like that. And then all of a sudden we were able to get to 76. It was just crazy. So we had to make a decision. And we said, well, the system allows you to go through bankruptcy, and the different types of bankruptcy, obviously. But as a business owner, I mean, as a small entrepreneur, you take a lot of risks. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it didn't. But here's one thing, Roman, what I did during that time. We made a decision, and I made a decision not to listen to like some quote unquote doctors who said, oh, if you go through bankruptcy, it will shorten your life 7 years or something like that. I said, no, not me. I'm not buying that. And we wanted to travel. So we said, okay, let's let go of the other properties that we didn't have and let it dissolve. But then we started traveling. And that the next year, we actually moved from Virginia, where I still had my performing arts school, to Florida the first time, because I loved it there. I ran a 5K and I thought, wow, this is great to be here. Let's move here. And we did that. And even though we didn't have much as far as financially to play with and play around, I think it was the littlest I had in my life. But here's the interesting fact. During that year, I felt that it was one of the happiest years in my life. We were at a beautiful place. My husband, my 2 canine children, the 2 dogs that we have were there. We had time. For the first time, we had time, and we were able to go to the beach. And I still treasure that time today. So it's really about how you respond to it, because at the end, you are responsible for your life and what you do with what you have and the circumstances that you have.
Yeah, ultimately, you don't get time back. You're going to reflect. I feel like, I'm 38. I feel like I'm old. I know I'm not, but looking back, like how did 20 years go by, since I graduated high school? So time isn't going to wait for you. You have to make and take risks. I would say take calculated risks, do what you want to do. And if it, fails or doesn't work, or if there's another factor involved, kind of pivot and figure out what you want to do. And oftentimes, it's scary because it's human nature to stay in a comfort state. So
Yep.
anything new, a new, venture, something happened where, currently maybe you were laid off or lost a business or something like that, to start something new, you're going to tell yourself that, you don't have a safety net. You're going to make excuses. And a lot of the time that pushes people out of, taking that step. But ultimately, like, that's the toughest thing, convincing yourself and then taking that first step. Because I think with everything in life that I've done, when it was like that kind of decision-making time, when I did take it, on the other side, it was more rewarding. So whatever it was, it seemed so scary. Anything, you have a fear of anything. I have a fear of heights. I hate flying. Every time I fly, before I get on the plane, I feel like I envision the plane crashing, which is obviously silly. But one of the things I did for one of my birthdays in my 20s, I went skydiving, and I wouldn't take that experience back. Like, it was terrifying. I have a video of a cameraman jumping with me, and you can see the terror in my eyes. But once you get out of the plane, you don't have a choice. What's going to happen is going to happen, and you kind of just have to enjoy the moment. So it's really enjoying the journey, and people have a lot of goals and, set up a lot of things in their life, and things kind of fall apart, and you have to pick up the pieces and work with what you have in your life to kind of, move forward.
Yep.
So yeah, I feel like economic factors coming as well. You mentioned real estate. Luckily, I don't know how lucky it was, but my wife and I made the choice when the economy was like, really good, like 2 years ago or so, in terms of real estate. We put our house on the market and had like 40 offers in 24 hours.
Wow.
So we happened to sell it, and we're renting and, trying to figure out where kind of like our next journey will be. But just because you have property or you have investments currently, everything is kind of up and down. And that's the same thing kind of, in life. You'll have good things, and oftentimes when you feel like everything great is happening, that's great. Enjoy the moment, but know that it may not last, because every time in my life when I'm on a high, like 2 or 3 things surrounding me happen. Like if my professional situation is great, finances and stuff, then somebody gets sick, or a death in the family, or something, dealing with something outside of that. So you never know what's going to happen ahead of you, and kind of being in a state of being able to be reactive to it, or proactive to it, because you don't want to be necessarily reactive. You have to have kind of a plan behind it, and not just handle things when they come. Like a bad thing comes and you don't know how to handle it. But I think everybody, what they've experienced in life prepares them for the next thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What you said is so true. All the experiences bring us to the next level that we have. That's why I also started my podcast. I started a podcast last year called Become, because I truly believe we have to become the person we are meant to be first, to live the life we are destined to live. And part of that journey is going through those tough times, going through those metamorphoses sometimes that we have to go through to become that butterfly and spread our wings and become our next greater self. And with every situation, with every experience, we'll take that and bring this into our new life. For those who are aware and mindful of that I believe we are being given those tasks to then serve on a greater level as well.
Yeah, and I think over time you build self-awareness and emotional IQ through those experiences, because the way I would handle a certain situation, I would say 15 years ago, is a lot different than I would handle it now based on all those experiences. And I feel like, all those no's in business, or somebody letting you go, or canceling a contract, or, being put in certain situations, or handling things like, loss, death, things with friends and family, at the time it's tough, because you have to go through a grieving process. You said, in terms of declaring bankruptcy. You kind of feel, you can potentially feel inadequate. How did I get to this point? Obviously, it's not your fault. And figure out how to kind of cope and move forward in that point in time. But I feel like that, I guess, wound, I would consider a wound at the moment. When you start dealing with it and understanding how to heal with it, or if it's, a personal loss, a death in the family, things of that nature, that wound over time, when you grieve and you kind of come out of it and learn how to live with it, becomes a scar. And then you can obviously carry that for the rest of your life, but can reflect back on all those scars you have to, like you mentioned, get you ready and able to, I guess, persevere for whatever life has to offer. Because I think people are given things that, they're able to handle at the time. They think this is overwhelming. But if you think about it, like me personally, if you asked me 6 years ago, would you become or be a foster parent? I would say like, no. So I can't see myself potentially doing that in terms of like my lifestyle and everything else. Or like, would you see yourself fostering one child? I would say no. But when you ask me now, it's like fostering 29 in 4 years, it becomes not as hard. Like certain things, certain challenges, certain potential achievements look daunting before you actually climb that kind of mountain. When you get to the other, to the top, there's going to be a next thing. There's going to be a more challenging thing. And, what are you going to do about it? You're not going to stop living. You just have to kind of persevere through it.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. When you are in this situation, I mean, it would be false for me to say that it didn't hurt. And there was a time that I felt overwhelmed and emotions had to go out. There was some crying involved. Absolutely. Yes. Right. But here is the thing. How fast can you snap out of it? Because when you are aware of what's going on, why things happen, you are able to snap out of that so much faster and respond accordingly, and then make a decision. And that's what makes the successful people successful. They are aware and they make decisions accordingly. And then they can move forward faster up to the next one. If you ask any successful person, it doesn't matter where they are in life, in their business, they all still go through challenging situations. It's just on a different level. So my take on it is that you better enjoy the journey, and in the knowing that there will be always something, there will be always a next step. And for me, that was a lesson, Roman, that I learned, because when I started my personal growth journey, and I was listening to a CD back then, we still had CDs, or watched somebody on YouTube, and I thought, or I bought a program. When I buy this program, when I do that, I got it made. Just to realize now, there was another step that I needed to take. And I was so disappointed. Also in my spiritual growth, I thought, when I get through that level, I'm enlightened or something like that, right? It's not that it's not that easy. Once you get to that plateau, then there is a next mountain to climb. And then you get to that plateau. And once I realized that and made peace with that part, that for the rest of my life, I will have other obstacles to overcome, I was fine. And I was so much more able to enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of investing in yourself, because oftentimes you can fall into a state of, I guess, depression or not a good place that it's hard to get out of. And, you start falling on, coping mechanisms like alcohol, drugs, and things kind of start slipping away and you don't know how to kind of get out of them. So I think now in 2023, more importantly, mental health, kind of mental well-being is important, especially entrepreneurs, startup founders, because I don't know what study was done. I read several that the rate of suicide in, entrepreneurs, startup founders in the tech space is a lot higher than the general population, because they oftentimes put all those problems on their shoulders, feel overwhelmed, don't discuss them, don't kind of, you know, um, degress or have a coping mechanism for stressful situations. And, you know, unfortunately, it kind of leads to that. But I feel like it's important, even if it's not a therapist, to have somebody or a mentor or somebody that you can sit down and actually talk to and have a constructive conversation, because oftentimes there's a lot of people in your life, especially close ones, that don't kind of objectively just listen. And I think listening is really important, instead of jumping in and saying, this idea is dumb, or, what are you doing with your life? So on and so forth. Really just listening and being there, I think, goes a long way. And like I mentioned, it's important to invest in yourself. Like, obviously we met at a podcast conference. So like, put yourself out there, meet people, network, find a mentor if you can, find a coach. What is necessary for you and your kind of mental well-being. And I think it's important to just kind of level up. Like, me as a human being, I have to wake up tomorrow and be a better version of myself, or at least make an attempt to learn something new, make another connection, because I feel like complacency is the death of innovation. I say a lot. So when you get to a very comfortable place, force yourself to be uncomfortable, because in that discomfort, oftentimes is like, it's like the diamond in the rough. It's where like those ideas come, those collaborations come, and those kind of like aha moments.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, we both are in the podcasting space, and your podcast gives a lot of good golden nuggets for people. Or, with my Become podcast, one of the reasons is also to have people understand that they are not alone. And even if they may not have anybody to talk to, they can listen to podcasts, and knowing that they're not alone and getting some advice for free, right? It's out there. And I think that's another very important part why we have podcasts, to help others wherever they are, right?
Yeah, it's putting yourself out there. Like you said, I've listened to things that maybe I'm dealing with, then find a person that's putting themselves out there. And oftentimes, if you don't see someone in a market or doing something that you're experiencing, if you're able to and you're comfortable with, be that person, be that kind of person that shares, person that becomes a thought leader about it. When I first got into foster care, I didn't find anyone really a lot in terms of discussing the things, the struggles from a male perspective or a foster dad's perspective. So then I started putting myself out there, sharing, being on shows related to it, to kind of put a voice. And how I got there, my wife and I going through 6 miscarriages, I found like no resources, that there weren't a lot of men comfortable talking about it, going through it from the male perspective. So I figure they're obviously, like, knowing the rates of, miscarriage and, lost pregnancies in the US, I'm not the only person going through it, but seems like there's not that many resources. So starting to openly share about it and, getting to a point to be comfortable to share about it, it's added value to myself, and it's been therapeutic to discuss it, as well as putting that information out there and being, a comfort to others that are experiencing and going through it as well currently.
Yeah, good for you. I admire that.
So what's one piece of advice you could leave with the audience, personal or professional?
Well, again, what I shared earlier, the first thing is you got to be aware of where you are and really go through your life being aware. And then belief, you got to work on your belief, because belief is everything. If you believe you can get it, you can make it, you can figure it out, you will. And even though you don't know the how in situations, the how will be presented to you. Don't worry about it, but strengthen your belief a little bit at a time and have a positive attitude. Those 3 things really got me through life, having that positive attitude, because positivity is so important for your physical and mental well-being. So that's basically also, and for business, my business advice, I truly believe we all have been given a gift to share and to use that to make a difference in this world. So I came from the entertainment industry, but I didn't start there. I was a claim adjuster because I was just listening to the well-meant advice of my dad, who said, Sabine, find a job with the benefits and a good salary, right? But I was unhappy. And then through a mentor of mine, he reminded me of what I'm good at. And I thought to myself, yes, that's right. I want to do this. I want to be on stage. I want to perform and entertain. And I had no idea how to get started, but I took the first step in the knowing and that belief that everything will work out. And it did. So if you are an entrepreneur or perhaps aspire to become an entrepreneur, know that it will happen if you put the work into it, obviously, right? We all have to work towards it. But just follow your dreams and use your gifts and talents.
Yeah, and it's pursuing it. And if you're good enough in something, and if you put the time in, you'll eventually get there. And I feel like everybody has something that they're good at. They just have to figure out, writing down those things which are their strength. It's like, a fish isn't good out of water, but if you put a fish in water, it can do, great things where a human can't do the same thing. So it's really knowing where you kind of fit and figuring out and being, like you said, I think self-aware that you may not be good at something that in business, you may need to hire someone because that's your weakness, but you have a certain strength that obviously carries that business and drives that business. So I think everyone is great or has greatness in the right component or the right fit. A lot of places where like you're not necessarily having a business, but you work for somebody else and that's someone, possibly laid you off in a current environment. That doesn't define who you are. You may be good in a good skill set, but we're put in the wrong environment to succeed.
Right. And, with that said, it's not to say that you have to stay in that particular job or the job description. I mean, I left the entertainment industry as an actress after 10 years. And then I became a coach, a teacher, and passed on the love of the performing arts. But I stayed in that realm. And even now, because now I'm teaching others to be more confident in front of the camera. So it's all my background. But the core is my personality. And we all have that uniqueness. The core stays there. I always was able to inspire and motivate and help people get to their next level. And as long as you stay in what your gifts and talents are, it's not necessarily a job description, right? But it is how you can use your gifts and talents. Then if you do this for the rest of your life, you just fulfilled your purpose here.
Yeah, I agree. So I really appreciate you stopping by today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Absolutely. It's just my name, SabineKvenberg.com/resources. And that's where you can get a lot of free content. And I always update things. So if you want to get in touch with me, you obviously can do that. Go to my website, Sabine Kvenberg, KVENBERG.com.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.